Trelawny Parish, Jamaica, a place most people picture when they think of the island's beauty. Green hills rolling toward the coast, yam farms stretching across red dirt roads, fishing boats bobbing in the Caribbean Sea, just west of where the parish meets the sea. It is the kind of place where people know each other by name, where families pass down land from one generation to the next, and where a hard day's work on the farm is just a way of life. It is also the place that produced one of the most calculating cold-blooded fraudsters in Jamaican history, a man who used a college degree, a silver tongue, and a cell phone to steal millions of dollars from elderly Americans who were just trying to hold on to the little they had left. Today, we are going to talk about Lavrick Willocks, the man who turned charm into a weapon, who built a criminal empire from a mansion in Jamaica, while his victims wept in farmhouses across rural America, and whose operation became so large, so organized, and so ruthless in its targeting of the most vulnerable people in society that it forced the United States government to launch what would become the first large-scale prosecution of a Jamaican lottery scam in American history. This is not a story about bullets and bloodshed. There were no drive-bys, no machetes, no bodies left in the road. What Lavrick Willocks did was quieter than that, and in many ways, far more calculated, because the people he destroyed were not rivals or enemies. They were grandmothers, widows, retired farmers, men and women who had spent their whole lives working, saving, building something small but real, and who, in their final years, trusted the wrong voice on the phone. That is what makes this story so hard to sit with, and that is exactly why it needs to be told. Lavrick Willocks was born around 1989, making him a child of the late 80s, raised on roughly 16 acres of family land in rural Trelawny. His family kept livestock and farmed the land, a modest, grounded upbringing by any measure. Trelawny sits just east of Montego Bay, Jamaica's second city, and its tourism heartbeat. And that contrast between the rural farming life and the glittering world of resorts and money just down the road likely shaped the way Willocks saw the world from early on. He was smart, nobody disputes that. Smart enough to leave Jamaica and earn a bachelor's degree in hospitality administration from Southern New Hampshire University in the United States. That is not a small thing. That is a man who sat in classrooms, wrote papers, studied business and management, and came out the other side with a real qualification. After graduating, he even worked briefly at a hotel in Memphis, Tennessee, putting that education to use in the real world the way it was intended. But in October 2009, Willocks returned to Jamaica, and the reasons he gave later in court were simple and human. His mother was struggling financially, and he could not find work. If you don't know somebody, he said, it's hard to get a job. So here was a man with an American degree, international work experience, and no door opening for him at home. What happened next is the part where the story turns dark, because Willocks did not give up on ambition. He redirected it, and he took everything his hospitality education had taught him: how to read people, how to build relationships, how to make someone feel at ease and important, and he pointed it at people who had no idea what was coming. Before the scam fully consumed him, there was a version of Lavrick Willocks that the people around him probably liked. He described himself as a promoter and a host, someone who threw parties and knew how to draw a crowd. In Jamaica, they party every night, he once said. It's a good business. With my education, I knew how to get people's attention. And he did. There are photos from that period. Willocks on a hoverboard at an event. Gold jewelry catching the light, a grin on his face. The kind of man who looked like he was having the time of his life. He once brought a snow machine to a party in a tropical country just for the spectacle of it. He hired professional photographers to document his events. He organized a G-string versus bikini theme night that people apparently still talked about. He was flashy, he was fun, he was good at making people believe in whatever version of a moment he was selling them. And that skill, that natural educated practiced ability to make people feel like something extraordinary was within their reach, is exactly what he eventually turned into the engine of a multi-million-dollar fraud. By 2011, Willocks was running what law enforcement would later describe as a sophisticated international lottery scam, operating primarily out of Jamaica and targeting vulnerable Americans, most of them elderly, most of them living alone, most of them in small rural towns where life moves slowly and trust still felt like a reasonable thing to extend to a stranger on the phone. The operation ran from 2011 to 2016 and at its peak was generating an estimated $300,000 per month. Let that number sit for a moment. $300,000 every month, pulled out of the savings accounts and retirement funds and insurance policies of people in their 70s, 80s, and 90s who believed they had won a life-changing prize and were just one more payment away from receiving it. The way the scam worked was not random. Willocks and his operation, described by investigators as a loosely affiliated group of family and friends, not a traditional violent gang, purchased what were called lead sheets. These were lists of names and contact details sourced from legal telemarketing databases, sweepstakes entries, and fake publishers' clearinghouse-styled forms where people had paid small entry fees to contests. Each list cost between $100 and $200, or roughly $10 per name. The people on those lists had already demonstrated one critical thing. They believed in the possibility of winning something. They had entered contests before. They had filled out forms. They had that particular combination of hope and trust that made them, in the language of the scam world, pre-qualified. For every 100 names on a list, Willocks' operation could expect to land roughly 2 victims. 2 people who would send money, and then keep sending money, and then keep sending money again and again until there was nothing left to send. Victims were contacted by phone, sometimes 10 to 20 calls per day, and the killers were not aggressive. That was the key. Willocks himself was reported to have enforced a strict rule across his operation. Never threaten them. Always leave a very positive note with the victim. This was not kindness. This was strategy, because frightened people call the police, but hopeful people keep picking up the phone. Callers posed as representatives from Publishers Clearinghouse, Mega Millions, American Cash Awards, the FBI, the IRS, the Nevada Gaming Commission, and the Federal Reserve. They were authoritative, warm, and completely convincing. They asked about victims' health. They asked about their families. They remembered details from previous calls. They prayed with the religious ones. They listened to the lonely ones. And they never, ever let the conversation end on a bad note. The FBI would later review over 2 million emails connected to the operation. 2 million. As they tried to untangle the web Willocks had woven across international borders and through the lives of at least 95 confirmed victims, who together lost more than $5.8 million. And investigators made clear that this figure represented only a fraction of the operation's true reach. But if there is one person whose story cuts deepest, whose face became the face of everything this operation destroyed, it is Edna Schmeets. And to understand what Lavrick Willocks actually did, not in abstract numbers, not in courtroom language, you need to understand Edna. You need to sit with who she was before his operation found her. Edna Schmeets was born around 1929, and she spent the better part of a century living in Harvey, North Dakota, a small farming town about 77 miles northeast of Bismarck. The kind of place where everyone knows the name of their neighbor's dog and strangers are noticed. She had been married to Lawrence Schmidtz for 62 years. 62 years. Lawrence had worked on the railroad, and they built a life together on a 640-acre wheat and cattle farm. The kind of life that is quiet and unglamorous from the outside, but rich in the way that only long marriages and well-tended land can be. They raised 4 children, a daughter named Lisa Appelt, who lived in Bismarck about 2 hours away and visited often, and 3 sons, Ronnie, Jeff, and Tim. There were grandchildren. There were great-grandchildren. There was a family that loved her. Lawrence Schmidtz passed away in 2010 at the age of 88. And just like that, after 6 decades of partnership, Edna was alone in that house in Harvey, North Dakota, with the farm, the memories, and a silence that could swallow a person whole if they let it. She was in her early 80s. She was not a foolish woman. She was not naive in the way that people sometimes smugly assume of scam victims. She was a woman who had managed a farm, raised a family, outlived her husband, and was still standing. She just made the mistake of answering the phone in the fall of 2011. The call came in September of that year, just months after Lawrence's death, when grief was still fresh and the house was still too quiet. The man on the other end of the line was warm and professional. He identified himself as Newton Bennett, calling from American Cash Awards. He told Edna Schmeets that she had won $19 million. And not just the money, a brand new Mercedes-Benz as well. Edna was skeptical. Of course she was. But then, a short time later, a second call came. This one from a man who identified himself as an FBI agent, confirming that the prize was absolutely legitimate, that everything was above board, and that all she needed to do was pay the required upfront fees and taxes to release her winnings. The federal taxes, they assured her, were already covered. It was only the state fees that required her attention. Newton Bennett was, of course, Lavrick Willocks, operating from his mansion in Jamaica, his hospitality degree, and years of party promotion, feeding perfectly into the persona of a calm, trustworthy, well-spoken professional. And the FBI agent was another member of his network, playing a role in a script that had been refined to exploit exactly the kind of person Edna was. Recently bereaved, isolated, and desperately hoping to do something meaningful for the family she loved. Edna sent the first payment, $3,500, wired as instructed, and then the calls kept coming, almost daily. Sometimes the calls were not even about money. Sometimes Newton just called to ask how she was doing, whether she had taken her medicine, how the grandchildren were. He seemed, she later said, like such a nice guy on the phone. And with every warm call, every gentle check-in, every reminder that the $19 million was almost ready to be released, the next request for fees felt smaller, more reasonable. Just one more step towards something that would change her family's life forever. She thought, she said later, if I had all of this money, I could give it to my children. That thought, that simple, generous, motherly thought, kept her sending. She sent large checks. She gave them her credit card number. She borrowed money from her sister. She cashed out her life insurance policies. She emptied her savings account. Over a period that stretched from late 2011 to as long as 4 years by some accounts, Edna Schmeets lost somewhere between $297,000 and $400,000. The money she had spent a lifetime accumulating, gone, sent in checks and wire transfers to accounts that led back to Jamaica, to a man on a hoverboard who had once thrown snow parties in the tropics. The scam unraveled not because Edna stopped believing, but because a bank worker in Harvey noticed something wrong. The checks were large. The recipients were unfamiliar. The pattern was alarming. The bank alerted her children, and Lisa Appelt, 2 hours away in Bismarck, was horrified when she learned the full extent of what had happened. Authorities were contacted in 2012, and what followed was an FBI investigation that would be named Operation Hard Copy. It became the first large-scale prosecution of a Jamaican lottery scam in the United States. Eventually, 31 to 32 defendants would be charged and prosecuted, including 14 Jamaican nationals who were extradited to face American justice. Among them was Lavrick Willocks, the man who had called himself Newton Bennett, who had asked Edna Schmeets about her grandchildren while draining her savings account. Edna Schmeets testified in federal court in Bismarck, North Dakota, during the trial of Sanjay Williams, a lead list broker connected to the scam network. She was 86 years old when she sat in that courtroom. By every account, she was calm, composed. She recounted the calls with painful clarity, how Newton Bennett had told her, absolutely don't tell anybody until she received the prize, how the demands kept escalating, another check and another check. She noted that when she looked across the courtroom at the defendant, he never returned her gaze. After the trial, she said she was relieved that he was convicted and going to jail. It was a small comfort, but she held on to it. Lavrick Willocks was convicted and sentenced for his role as the kingpin of the operation. The full scope of what he built, the lead sheets, the scripts, the fake identities, the network of callers, the mansion in Jamaica coordinating it all, while his mother Dahlia Hunter reportedly assisted in the operation, was laid bare in court. He had applied every skill his education and his years of promotion had given him, and turned them toward a machine designed specifically to exploit grief, hope, and trust. At its peak, that machine was pulling in $300,000 a month. Across his 5-year run, it left at least 95 identified victims financially devastated, with total confirmed losses exceeding $5.8 million. And investigators consistently noted that the real number was almost certainly far higher. As of November 2019, Edna Schmeets was 90 years old. She was still living in Harvey, North Dakota, surrounded by piles of documents, letters, receipts, records of every payment she had made chasing a prize that never existed. She had received exactly $287 in restitution. Another $138 was reportedly pending out of $400,000. She told reporters she thought about it every single day. She kept asking herself, how could you be so dang stupid? But the truth, the real honest truth, is that Edna Schmeets was not stupid. She was a widow who had just lost her husband of 62 years. She was a mother who wanted to do something good for her children. She was a woman who answered the phone and heard a warm, educated, convincing voice on the other end. A voice that belonged to a man who had studied how to make people believe in him, who had spent years perfecting the art of getting attention, and who had decided that the most efficient use of all of that talent was to take everything from people who had nothing left to lose. That is who Lavrick Willocks was. Not a warrior, not a gangster with a code, a man with a degree and a phone, and a complete willingness to destroy the lives of elderly strangers for money. And somewhere in a North Dakota farmhouse, an old woman sits with a pile of papers and $287, still asking herself a question she never deserved to have to ask. What the Willocks case ultimately revealed was something that law enforcement had been reluctant to confront head-on for years. That Jamaica's lottery scam industry was not a collection of small-time hustlers working from street corners. It was organized. It was sophisticated. It was staffed by people who understood human psychology, who could read grief and loneliness and hope and exploit each one with surgical precision. The lead lists, the scripted calls, the fake government impersonations, the emotional rapport building that stretched across months and sometimes years. None of that happens by accident. That is infrastructure. That is a business model. And Lavrick Willocks, with his hospitality degree and his promoter's instinct for reading a room, was one of its most capable architects. The fact that Operation Hard Copy resulted in 31 prosecutions and the extradition of 14 Jamaican nationals was historic. But for Edna Schmeets and the at least 94 other confirmed victims whose names appear in court records. History is cold comfort when the savings are gone and the phone still rings.